Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, Forever in Memory. In this video, we'll be honoring American celebrities who have passed away today and in recent days, along with other notable figures from around the world. Before we begin, please show your support by giving this video a like. It really helps the channel. Thank you, and let's get started. Died on September 19, 2025. Ishtvan B. 76 years old, was a Hungarian artistic gymnast, best known as a member of the men's team at the 1972 Munich Olympics, where he competed in 8 events and helped Hungary to 8th in the team all-around. A Budapest native and product of the Vasas club system, he was part of a generation that carried Hungarian men's gymnastics through a demanding international cycle, valued for clean execution, stamina across multiple apparatuses, and a work ethic that made him a reliable team man. Born December 19, 1948, in Budapest, Kiss came up through Hungary's centralized sports schools before earning national team selection and the Olympic call. Teammates remembered him as diligent and unshowy, the sort of competitor who did the hard rotations without complaint and whose consistency steadied the lineup. His passing, announced by the Hungarian Olympic Committee, closes the chapter on a quiet professional who did his country's heavy lifting on the sport's biggest stage. Died on September 18, 2025. Brett James, 57, was a Grammy-winning Nashville songwriter and producer whose pen powered a generation of country radio. A craftsman equally at home with prayerful ballads and sun-struck anthems. He died in a small plane crash near Franklin, North Carolina. All 3 aboard a Cirrus SR-22T were killed, and federal authorities are investigating. Known legally as Brett James Cornelius, he was mourned across Music Row by artists who'd ridden his words to the top of the charts. What made James singular wasn't just longevity, but range. He wrote Carrie Underwood's Jesus, Take the Wheel, Grammy winner for Best Country Song, and Kenny Chesney's breezy When the Sun Goes Down, then swung to Jessica Andrews' first #1, Who I Am, Martina McBride's Blessed, Jason Aldean's The Truth, Chris Young's The Man I Want to Be, Dierks Bentley's I Hold On, and Kenny Chesney's Out Last Night. His catalog stretched beyond country, cuts for Kelly Clarkson, Backstreet Boys, Bon Jovi, and more, and his mantle carried 2 ASCAP Country Songwriter of the Year titles, 2006, 2010, and induction into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, 2020. Industry tallies credit him with more than 20 dozen #1 singles and hundreds of major label cuts, proof that his instincts for hook, image, and emotional turn were unusually sure. Born June 5, 1968, in Columbia, Missouri, Brett James grew up largely in Oklahoma, studied at Baylor University, B.S. 1991, and entered medical school before music pulled him back to Nashville. A brief mid-90s stint as a recording artist gave way to the career that fit him best, writing daily, collaborating widely, and producing select projects while mentoring younger writers. Friends describe a generous teammate with a surgeon's precision for lyric and meter. A man who believed the most durable songs were built on ordinary details sung plainly. He is survived by his wife Sandra Cornelius and their children. In an industry that prizes novelty, Brett James made the familiar feel newly true, again and again. Died on September 18, 2025. Field Marshal Charles Guthrie was a soldier's scholar who learned his trade in the Welsh Guards and the SAS, where small unit patrols and messy conflicts taught him that clear intent, good logistics, and trust mattered more than slogans. Rising through every level of command to lead the army and then serve as Britain's senior military advisor, he shaped operations from the Balkans to Sierra Leone and argued calmly, relentlessly, that force only works when the political purpose is exact. He prized mission command, fought for training time and kit that worked, and had the rare gift of speaking to politicians without flattery and to privates without condescension. After leaving uniform, he stayed in the public square as a crossbench peer and mentor, pressing for ethical standards in detention and interrogation, realism in procurement, and proper care for veterans and families. Ceremonial duties kept him close to the regiments. Charity and education work kept him close to the people they serve. What he leaves behind is less a list of posts than a way of doing the job. Alliances as armor, clarity over fashion, and leadership measured by how well it protects those asked to carry the load.
Died on September 18, 2025. Gennady Gillin was a Russian jurist whose judicious, plain-spoken opinions helped shape the country's post-Soviet constitutional practice. A graduate of the Sverdlovsk Law Institute who rose through academia to become a doctor of law and professor, he brought a scholar's precision to the bench and a practitioner's feel for how rules meet real life. From 1999, he served on Russia's Constitutional Court, where colleagues knew him for careful drafting, close attention to municipal and budget law, and a steady preference for clarity over spectacle. His writing, majority opinions and dissents alike, tended to begin with first principles and end with workable guidance for lower courts and local officials. Away from the spotlight, he mentored younger lawyers, lectured on constitutional standards for regional and local government, and treated the robe less as elevation than as responsibility. State honors followed, but he wore them lightly. The work that mattered, he liked to say, was the page in front of him and the people who had to live by it. Gillin leaves behind a quieter legacy than most public figures. Thousands of civil servants and judges who read his opinions to figure out how to do their jobs, and a body of reasoning that tried, case by case, to make the law a little more exact.
Died on September 18, 2025. Ambrois Dupant, 88, was a Normandy conservative and long-serving French senator whose career tied local stewardship to international outreach. A farmer by profession and for decades the mayor of Victo-Ponfol, he carried the Pays d'Orge's concerns to Paris as senator for Calvados, earning a reputation for diligence, courtesy, and a meticulous command of files. In the upper chamber, he championed agriculture, regional development, and Europe-minded cooperation, chaired the France-Caucasus Friendship Group, and was the kind of parliamentarian colleagues trusted to master a brief and build consensus without theatrics. At home, he helped turn Normandy's identity into economic strength. He was a driving force behind the Festival des AOC of Normandie, celebrating protected origin foods and cideries, and the Equidays Horse Festival, showcasing a world-class equine industry that touches breeders, vets, trainers, and tourism. Beyond festivals, he built intercommunal structures, mentored mayors, and served as a bridge between town halls and ministries, patient in negotiation, exacting in follow-through. Honors followed. national and foreign decorations that reflected his habit of connecting a small rural commune to wider networks. But he wore them lightly. Residents remember a practical mayor who answered letters, turned up in muddy boots after storms, and believed prestige should follow service, not the reverse. Ambrois Dupant leaves a map for sturdy local politics. Protect what makes a place itself, modernize without erasing it, and treat public trust as something you renew, quietly, every day.
Died on September 19, 2025. Fausto Amod, 91, was a pillar of Italy's modern protest song, a founder of Cantacronache in Turin, whose clear, satirical writing helped invent a new civic music for the post-war era. His best-known ballad, Per I morti di Reggio Emilia, named the victims of the 1960 massacre and became a touchstone of Italy's memory culture. Its plain melody and Brossen's tinged irony set the template for a generation of engaged cantatori. Alongside Cantacronache, he worked with the broader Nuovo Canzoniero Italiano movement, widening the repertoire from folk revival to trenchant social commentary, and later briefly entered Parliament with the PSIUP, carrying the same insistence on words that answer to deeds. A trained architect from the Politecnico di Torino, Amod treated songs like crafted objects, sturdy meter, singable tunes, images that travel from factory floor to piazza. Over decades, he wrote fables with sharp teeth, barracks letters, and shop floor chronicles. Younger artists, from mainstream cantatori to punk bands, drew on his language and stance. His passing in Turin closes a chapter, but the songs keep doing their job, naming what happened, refusing to forget, and reminding listeners that music can still be a form of public conscience.
Born on October 7, 1959, in Lambeth, London, Simon Philip Cowell would become one of the most influential pop tastemakers of the modern era. A music executive and television producer who helped turn talent shows into a global industry. He's best known as the driving force behind the Idol, X Factor, and Got Talent franchises, and as the sharp-tongued judge whose blunt critiques became a pop culture ritual. His larger achievement lies in how he fused A&R instincts with television storytelling to discover, package, and launch international acts, from Leona Lewis and Susan Boyle to One Direction, Little Mix, Il Divo, and Fifth Harmony, reshaping how stars are found and how audiences participate in making them. Cowell grew up in Hertfordshire after his family moved out of London, in the village of Elstree, a place shadowed by sound stages and studio gates. His father, Eric Cowell, worked in publishing and later in the music business. His mother, Julie, had been a dancer. The house mixed discipline with show business pragmatism. You worked hard and you paid attention to what people actually liked. From an early age, Simon was drawn less to schoolrooms than to the radio and TV set, filing away what made a record stick in your head or a personality fill a screen. He attended a series of independent schools and never pretended to love them. Teachers saw a bright student resistant to rules, more engaged by pop charts than by coursework. He played up a deadpan sense of humor, organized pranks, and discovered he was happiest when he was judging what worked and what didn't, in a song, a joke, a performance. That instinct for assessment, honed in classrooms he wanted to leave, would one day become his on-air persona. By his mid-teens, he had the contours of a plan, even if he couldn't yet name it. Music over academia, work over credentials, results over rhetoric. The proximity to studios made show business feel like a practical trade, not a fantasy, and family connections offered a first glimpse of how labels functioned. Before any cameras, before the format deals and arena finals, the foundation was set. A stubborn ear for hooks, a cool eye for audience reaction, and a conviction that talent, correctly framed, could be manufactured into a moment and a career. In his late teens and early 20s, Cowell did exactly what he'd promised himself. He skipped the long academic detour and went straight to the music business, starting at the very bottom. A junior post at a record company taught him the mechanics: contracts, clearances, demo piles, the small frictions that make or break a release calendar. He was quick, blunt, and allergic to mystique. If a record didn't move people in 30 seconds, he said so. Those habits followed him when he left the safety of a big office for the gamble of independent labels, where budgets were thin and the only proof that mattered was a ringing phone from radio. The first real run came with a boutique imprint that leaned into bright, radio-ready pop. He paired himself with writers and producers who understood hooks, signed performers who could sell a chorus with a grin, and learned how to make small money behave like big money. Targeted press, the right TV slot, sleeves that popped on a shelf. Sanita's high-gloss singles were the calling card, fizzy, unashamed, and built for chart oxygen. And they taught him an enduring lesson. When you know the audience, you can engineer delight rather than wait for it by accident. Then the market turned and the bottom fell out. Distribution shifted, a run of bets went cold, and the company folded. Cowell was suddenly on the wrong side of the ledger. Back home, bills stacked, pride dented. The setback hardened rather than softened his instincts. When he returned to a major label as an A&R fixer, he brought a new rulebook: tie records to stories people already love, and meet audiences where they live. That meant novelty and nerve as often as it meant artistry. He chased TV tie-ins and brand crossovers. He pushed unlikely stars into the studio. He didn't flinch at covers if the timing and casting were perfect. A pair of actors from a primetime drama were coaxed into recording an old standard, and the resulting single became a phenomenon. Children's television mascots turned into seasonal chart toppers. Purists scoffed, the charts didn't. Underneath the showmanship was a cold, clear process. Cowell tested songs in living rooms, not boardrooms. He watched how choruses played with non-fans. He cut bridges that slowed the pulse. He surrounded himself with arrangers who could make a key change feel like a fireworks cue, and with publicists who knew how to turn a Tuesday booking into a Saturday headline. At the same time, he kept one foot in traditional pop development, backing vocal groups whose harmonies felt both classic and current, and boy bands calibrated to the appetite of radio and schoolyards alike. He wasn't pretending to discover authenticity in a vacuum. He was designing products that fit the moment and then pushing the moment to fit the product. By the end of this climb, Cowell had two crucial assets: a reputation for making hits from unlikely ingredients and a sixth sense for how television could supercharge music. He'd learned to task as much as he'd learned to produce, to script a public arc as much as a studio session. The next step, building talent shows that fused all those skills into a weekly national ritual, wasn't a leap so much as the inevitable shape of everything he'd been practicing.
By the early 2000s, the plan snapped into focus. Put A&R on television. Pop Idol arrived first, then American Idol, with Cowell cast as the brutally honest judge who said what the industry was thinking. The role wasn't an act so much as a distillation, quick diagnostics, no padding, a fixation on songs that work. He understood that a live results show is just a record release with cameras, and he built the beats accordingly. Auditions as character casting, weekly themes as product testing, finales as launch days. Artists who could carry that pressure, Kelly Clarkson, Leona Lewis, Carrie Underwood, were propelled from stage to charts in a single motion, proving that TV could be an A&R engine rather than a sideshow. As the empire expanded, he built infrastructure to match. Psycho became a pipeline from Saturday night television to Monday morning offices. A&R, publishing, touring, brand deals, so momentum never cooled between episodes. He could be unsparing in edits and single choices, but the goal was consistent. Songs first, stories second, ego last. When the model needed recalibration, he adjusted in public. A softer tone in later judging, more room for artistry within the machine, and occasional experiments that reminded viewers the format could still surprise. The same machinery turned toward charity when needed. Cowell marshaled all-star singles into national rituals, telethons, relief records, using his producer's knack for logistics to turn sentiment into swift, bankable help. He leaned on the voice that launched his TV persona, direct, unvarnished, but aimed it at fundraising targets and timelines instead of contestants. There were misses, fatigue cycles, and the inevitable critiques about packaging and overexposure. He absorbed them, retired what no longer worked, and refocused on the asset that outlasts trend lines: intellectual property. By concentrating on formats and franchises, he shifted from running a conventional label to running the pipes through which labels and platforms feed. Along the way, he weathered personal setbacks, returned to the panel, and kept the larger machine humming, proof that the product he truly perfected was a system. What remains is a blueprint for 21st century pop. Talent as narrative, audience as stakeholder, television as accelerator, and A&R as a public sport. Simon Cowell didn't just judge singers, he redesigned how stars are made, compressing the distance between a living room audition and a world tour. His legacy is visible every weekend in studios from Manila to Manchester. A blinking scoreboard, a hook that lands, a new act learning, in front of millions, how to turn attention into a career.